what would you say to people about the connection between religious freedom and democratic stability? In other words, how important is it to get this question of religious freedom right in order to have democratic stability?
That's a very important question, and I'm glad you give me an opportunity to address it. It's something that I came to think about a lot only when I was forced to, when I was serving as chairman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom a little less than a decade ago. I had always, in my own thinking and writing about religious freedom, focused on the inherent right to religious freedom. And that should be the first thing to be said about religious freedom. It's an inherent human right. We should focus on its inherent importance, its inherent value, before looking at its additional benefits, its instrumental benefits. So first of all, religious freedom is a fundamental human right. It protects the fundamental human good of religion, of being able to think for oneself about the great existential questions, answer them honestly, live with authenticity and integrity in view of one's best answers. But as I came to see when I was chairing the commission, there are important additional instrumental benefits. And one of those is the maintenance of liberal democracies. There's a high correlation between democracy and religious freedom, between religious freedom and democracy. Now, that's not to say that democracies cannot turn against religious freedom. They certainly can. And not all democracies have a great record on religious freedom or on civil liberties generally. It was Athenian democracy that resulted in the murder of Socrates. So we mustn't deify democracy. And yet, a properly liberal democracy, what our founders would have called a republic, a democracy that also respects civil liberties, will respect the most basic and fundamental of all civil liberties, the first freedom, religious freedom, or the free exercise of religion. And that will in turn help to support liberal democracy. If you turn against, even if you're a democracy and you turn against religious freedom, democracy itself will not long endure. If you want religious freedom to long endure, you probably don't want authoritarian systems in the long run, because they will not in the long run consistently respect religious freedom if there are any significant religious minorities in the country. Now, if you have a completely religiously monochrome country, maybe authoritarian regimes would not imperil the religious life of the people if those in authority share that religious perspective. But if you have pluralism, authoritarian regimes, even the relatively benign authoritarian regimes, we're not talking about Hitler or Stalin or Mao Zedong, will not be friendly to religious freedom. If you want religious freedom to flourish in the long run in circumstances of pluralism, you want to maintain democracy. So as I see it, my experience, especially working on the commission and having to deal with all sorts of different countries with all sorts of political systems, and religious freedom being a live issue in so many of them, my experience was there's a reciprocal relationship, a mutuality between religious freedom and liberal democracy. You sort of can't, in the long run, have the one without the other. You need them to be mutually supportive, and they will be mutually supportive if you nurture them both.